Let me ask you a hard but necessary question. Have you ever hired someone that was full of potential only to watch them slowly unravel right in front of you? Or maybe you've been that person. You started with drive, you started with vision, and then something shifted. You didn't mean to slow down, but somehow things just got messy. Today, we're talking about why that happens and how you as a leader can shift it before entropy takes over. A while ago, I had someone on my team, let's call her Sarah, who was absolutely on fire. I ran her numbers and she was on track to make $132,000 this year working behind the chair. That was her take home income as a W 2 employee. So that wasn't potential, that was real momentum. But then I noticed little by little, it started to slip. She missed a huddle. She skipped, a big salon celebration. And, she said she was tired. And now I don't say this with judgment. I say this with love and honesty. That was entropy. Because here's what the law of entropy says. Everything moves from order to disorder unless acted upon by an intelligent force. Whew, that's good. Let me say that again. Everything moves from order to disorder unless acted upon by an intelligent force. You guys, that includes your house, that includes your business, and that absolutely includes the mindset of a service provider. So what happened to Sarah? She stopped being acted upon. She left the structure, she left the coaching, she left our community, you know, the whole salon. And now months later, she's earning less, she's doing less, she's working a ton more, and she's probably feeling more stuck than ever. And listen, she's still talented, she's still capable, but the energy is leaking out. I think that if you contrast that with somebody else on my team, let's just call her Mia. Mia shows up to everything. She's knocking on the door asking, "What else can I learn? What else can I do? How can I grow to the next level of who I'm becoming?" And the results, she's skyrocketing faster than I ever expected, because she's not just avoiding entropy, she's expanding.
Such a great story to share, Lindsay, because I bet other salon owners listening to this can relate. Maybe they just didn't have the words to explain it, but they see the Sarahs on their team and they see the Mayas or Mia's. What would you say, Maya?
Yeah.
Maya's
Mia.
on their team.
Mia.
Mia's on their team, and gives you some assessment of how to handle people and understand who people are. So, I love that you said that because this has helped me realize that the old normal in salons, it was babysitting, it was
Mm.
pushing, it was forcing. Like you had to light the fire, hold their hand, remind them daily to want more. I'll never forget a new leader on my team one time said, we were in a leadership meeting. She's like, "I feel like I'm babysitting." Like we actually looked up the word babysitting. I said, if you feel like you're babysitting, like you're losing respect as a leader. And so I love that, you have to light the fire, you have to hold their hand, remind them daily to want more. Because here's the explosion moment, force doesn't work. That would be like babysitting, like force doesn't work. You will always feel exhausted when you're forcing someone to do something they don't want for themselves. We like to say this is a writer downer. This will give you so much freedom as a salon owner if you really take this to heart. You will always be exhausted when you're forcing someone to do something they don't want for themselves. And why is that? It's because force is power made operative against resistance. But
Mm.
power, on the other hand, power is that ability to hold your position. It's the capacity to act with effectiveness. Power doesn't chase, it attracts, it grounds, it multiplies. So I'm going to invite you to see that the new normal I want you to step in as a salon owner is letting go of force and stepping into that power. Because as you stand as the one who doesn't beg your team to rise, but one who builds a culture so magnetic, so full of growth that they can't help but expand in your presence.
Mm, that is incredible, Jen. I love, that you talked about that difference between force and power. I think that there is so much freedom in knowing the difference between force and power. Because if you've ever said to yourself, gosh, I'm so exhausted, I would look at the definition of both of those words and see which one have you been spending a majority of your time in, because hey, I will be the first one to admit I have, invested time in people before that weren't interested in actually getting that investment of time. It wasn't, they had no desire for more. And, so when you do something like that, you're forcing it upon someone. But power, when you build that and you have that ability to hold and maintain a position because you're creating something incredible, that's when things start to shift, because mindset isn't fluff, you guys. This isn't little pillows of white, fluffy cotton everywhere. This is the operating system for every action your team takes, you guys, because most people live in a have, do, be world, and so they think I need to have more clients, then I'll do the work, and finally I'll be successful. But the truth is, it's absolutely the other way around. You have
Mhm.
to be, do, and then have. So you want to be the kind of person who takes full ownership. Be the person that you want to be. Then do the work with consistency and energy of that person that you want to be. And then you'll have the success that follows. And what's so cool about this is that every part of this starts in the mind. And so when you work on your beingness, and as a salon owner, and when you help everyone around you work on their beingness as well, that's when they can have everything that they want in this life, because when you be that person, you naturally do the things that that person would do, and then on the other side of that comes having everything that that person would have.
Mhm. So good. I love that you said that. It's because you're, maybe right now you're listening to this and you're maybe asking yourself, you're like, I feel like I've been dragging my team up the mountain. So you've got your hand out, you're pulling them really hard. It's like, oh my God, it's so draining, right? Or you're like, I'm tired of repeating the same pep talk every Monday. I've been there, I know. Or I can't keep forcing them to care more than they do. If that's you, like honestly, take a deep breath, because you can shift it, and it starts with your energy. Like you weren't meant to operate in force. You were meant to live in power. And like Lindsay was saying, power is the ability to hold and maintain a position. Because when you truly stand in your power, something really wild happens. Like your team starts to match you. Clients notice it, and your culture starts to self organize towards excellence. Because entropy doesn't win. At the end of the day, like you truly do.
Mhm. I love that, Jen. I actually just had the opportunity to do a final interview with a potential service provider yesterday, and she talked about, she'd just graduated from school and she'd seen us come into the school multiple times. And she said, one of the first times you came in, you did a career challenge. And I realized, she was talking about, when we go in and do the fun sweet life or sweet life,
Mm.
which is where you talk about, hey, what does it look like to be a sweet owner? And what does it look like to have a sweet life at our salon? And just kind of what the difference. So we hand out money, and they get to play this fun game, and then start to realize, hey, what's super cool about working for a company that's inside of Salon Business School, all the companies that we work with, is that I can make the most amount of money per hour, and it's so cool when you start to see, hey, I would rather spend my free time on a beach than I would doing XYZ, learning, how to market, how to, be a tax accountant, how to just be a bookkeeper, all these just random different things. And what we talked about was like actually one of the most powerful things in that is to just work on your own beingness so that you can really, contrasting to the, two types of service providers that we talked about at the beginning of the call, so that you can be the person who's okay with earning $132,000 a year as a service provider, only working 28 hours a week, because it all starts with us. Like we can't force anybody on our team to do anything, but we can create that space to allow people to be who they want to be. And we can let people flow in and out that are supposed to be the right fit, because she was so excited. She was like, I can't even believe that this is an opportunity, that I might have the possibility to be a part of. It's just fun to even think about that. And I think it was just amazing, when we stand in our power as salon owners and we share what it is that we are put on this earth to do, and help people create amazing lives and livings. It all starts with our beingness. And so I think, if this resonated with you and you're ready to stop forcing and start leading in power, join us inside of Salon Business School, because we don't just teach strategy, because strategy can get eaten for lunch every single day. We really focus on your identity and building leaders who know how to be first so that the rest can take care of itself, because your team is waiting for someone to show them what's possible. And that someone, it's you listening to this podcast right now. So if this moved you in some way, or you have another salon owner friend that you think would enjoy this episode, please share it with them. We're super grateful to get the opportunity to work with all of you listening and all of the incredible people inside of Salon Business School.
All right, guys. So just remember, a garden turns into weeds if it's not maintained. So just a beautiful reminder to go out there today and do some awesome things in our salon industry.